fire stations. And a big welcome to Gary McKay, who is our new Deputy Chief Fire Officer. Welcome, Gary, and of course Tom Hurst, who runs our prevention and protection units, and Charlie, who is responsible for our service design and delivery. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And yes, a big welcome from me to Gary. I don't know whether this is how it has been working in your previous fire rescue services, but this is a North Yorkshire way of doing our public accountability. Because of our geography, it makes a lot more sense to have public meetings online. We normally have these presentations, and then there is opportunity for the public to ask questions, and there is a spotlight section where I will normally raise a couple of issues as well. But welcome, and if you want to jump in at any point, if anyone has things they want to add, please just use the hand up function on the Teams link. But we can start with the performance update, and I think, Damien, that one is you.
It is. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So if you can just let me know when you can see the presentation. Thank you. So this is the service delivery performance. This is for Q3 of the financial year, so from the 1st of October to the 31st of December. It follows the usual format. So first of all, we've got our prevention activity and our home fire safety visits. So as you can see from the graphs there, we completed 1,600 home fire safety visits in Q3. That was a 35% increase on the same reporting period last year. We've completed, to the point at the end of the December, 5,026. That's against our annual target that we work with crews to define, of 5,500. So we're well on target for meeting that annual target. Pleasingly, again, over 2/3 of our home fire safety visits are targeted those categorised as very high and high risk. So we're actually getting into the properties that we need to the most. As part of a past NYFRS inspection, we got requested to improve our quality assurance and evaluation, and you can see from the third bullet point on the right hand side that continued effort is to ensure that we're quality assuring and evaluating our activity around the home fire safety visits, just to ensure that they are delivering behavioural changes in the home for those most vulnerable. I will pause there, Deputy Mayor, see if there's any questions on that slide.
No, just a couple of things. One was just to ask whether it would be possible to have that high, very high, medium, low risk in those bar charts in order, so that they just incrementally descend from very high to low, so that it's easier to just work out which one is which, not least because those fonts are very small. That's just a small thing. And then just the other question I had was about the increase in prevention visits, the 35%, whether there was a corresponding or some impact. Had there been other demand changes in other areas, less call outs, or something else that might have enabled you to do that significant increase in that period of time?
Certainly. So when we work at the start of the year to define the annual targets, we work with crews. One of the areas that we looked at previously, probably 2 or 3 years ago now, we were doing high numbers of protection visits. So that's business fire safety visits, but these were in low risk businesses and weren't leading to any discernible outcomes, but we were on the lower end when you look at national benchmarking for prevention. So we did make a really conscious decision to direct more activity into the prevention space than protection, but as you will see when we move into that protection space, we're still doing lots of activity in there. But prevention was, when we looked at the national benchmarking, an area that we did need to improve upon. That's why we're seeing these year-on-year improvements in the figures.
Great, we can move on. That was all I had on that one.
Thank you. So this just talks about the wider work with regards to prevention. So as you can see, safeguarding referrals, our fire safe referrals where we're referring to other partners. It does show a slight drop in the events attended and school education talks, but I'm sure Tom will suggest that we are still doing that activity. We're doing lots of focused activity in and around certain areas around the county to ensure that we're targeting our resources where they're most beneficial. So we are still doing the school education talks and events attended, but there has been that discernible sort of move to that safety in the home and the home fire safety visits.
Great. Just a question about the adult referrals increase, because actually, although that increase is a significant percentage, the overall number is not that big. But I just wondered how it correlates with the referrals from partners, because actually, are we actually doing a lot of safeguarding adult referrals because of partner referrals rather than directly? Is that, how do those two things fit together?
I would have to ask Tom for that with regards to the referrals. The part with the safeguarding, obviously we do have the safeguarding manager now. I think that is a direct correlation to the work that we've done with crews. So crews are far more confident now in spotting any of the areas that need to be referred to other partners and through safeguarding. So we have seen increased confidence levels of our operational crews in identifying those vulnerabilities and any safeguarding issues to make the referrals. I don't know if they correlate to the referrals that we're getting in from partner agencies. I don't know if Tom does have that information, Deputy Mayor.
Tom, I don't know whether you're able to come in or whether we maybe need to just come back to that.
Sorry about that.
Damien, I think you need to mute while Tom speaks.
Yeah, apologies. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think the correlation is increased in the home fire safety visits, especially the high and the very high. Referral pathways, we do get identification of safeguarding from the back of them, but also some of the target and address listing that we're now undertaking. But yeah, the more high and very high properties we do visit, the more enhanced chance there is of following up with an adult referral in those places.
I see. So it's more likely to be a secondary visit following out from another partner referral visit.
Yeah, we can see them through there, and also crews now undertake visits to areas where we consider might be high or very high risk, and from that, often they identify with the training that's been undertaken through the safeguarding manager and the prevention team. They're more likely to spot safeguarding opportunities where they refer through to adult safeguarding.
Great. And then my only other question was just about the school visits, and just really to understand whether the change is perhaps due to different targetings. I know that we had some arson incidents, particularly in City of York, that I was aware of, and whether or not that targeting of school visits was maybe linked to that, or maybe what those visits would cover. Just if you can just say a little bit more about those school visits and what determines which schools get the visits.
Yeah, I'll answer that one if that's okay, Deputy Mayor. So we do a lot more targeted interventions now rather than engagements. We used to do a lot of engagements. If somebody asked for a visit, we would provide a visit, not necessarily based around a theme or a primary purpose of that. And you've just mentioned recently an area where we have been seeing a bit of an increase in antisocial behaviour and antisocial behaviour fires. We have been able to go in and deliver specific packages around that to those schools in those areas to see if that will then provide a reduction. And then we've got some of the other youth activities, such as our fire safe and our new youth prevention youth package about the Building Resilience Programme as well, which we are undertaking in that area next month. And then also one of the things we would like to discuss is the Staywise. So our youth and schools manager, she helps and supports within the Staywise package. This is a national organisation which has different education packages for different age groups on different safety prevention areas within that. So where we don't necessarily attend, schools themselves can deliver that package themselves. And what we can do, if it will be a benefit, we get that actual who has accessed it, who has used those packages, and we can incorporate that into some figures of some reviews of actual youth engagement, if that will be a benefit.
That would be really helpful. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that would be great. And then, sorry, just one final question, which may be for you, Tom, as well. Just which of the partners, because that's seen the biggest increase, the home fire safety visit referrals from partners, which ones have been the kind of best referrers? But do you have any partners where you're concerned that you don't get many referrals?
Yeah, so what we're focusing on within the next community risk management plan is we're going to increase our engagements with housing and health nationally and regionally. We're probably a little bit lower than some of the other services around our engagements and partnership referrals through there. So our head of prevention and early intervention and our partnership manager are already working with both the local authority housing and some of the housing associations to undertake training to their staff to make sure they identify what we see as a risk within their building stock.
That's great. And obviously anything the mayor and I can do in terms of the interactions that we will be having with those partners, obviously just let us know. Okay. We can move on. Thank you. Thanks, Damien.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So now on to protection. So our business fire safety, as you can see from the chart on the left, we are showing lower numbers this financial year with regards to our regulatory activity and through any statutory and non-statutory consultations which are generated from outside of the organisation, which we don't hold any control over. The regulatory activity that was expected to be lower this financial year because we launched our risk-based intervention programme, which identifies those highest risk buildings across the service area, and it is much more of a targeted approach to go into all of those businesses that have been deemed at higher risk. When we're doing them, at times they will take longer for us to do. There's more engagement that's required there, but we are moving through that risk-based intervention programme, and we've made a commitment that we would visit all of those premises within the risk-based intervention programme over a 3-year period. The one there that has got the huge increase in difference, the fire safety check, that has been a new introduction into the service on the back of the risk-based intervention programme. And what we do with the fire safety check, so our operational crews, as I previously stated, they were going out to do some of the lower risk premises across our service areas. What the fire safety check allows us to do is actually to get them to go into much more meaningful premises and businesses, identify if there are any causes of concern that they identify, and then they can refer them through to our specialist team that can do follow-up inspections and take any appropriate action that's required. So that's the reason for some of those. As you can see with the apologies, I've just noticed there's acronyms in there. So the automatic fire alarms and the unwanted fire signals, that is fairly similar to last year. Obviously, we're doing a lot of work with businesses that do have unwanted fire signals, working with them, and there is evidence to show that we're spending a little bit more time when we do have those unwanted fire signals to educate responsible owners within those premises. I will pause there and see if there's any questions on that one.
Just a question about the business fire safety officers who are doing the that fire safety activity. Just really what their role is and how many of them we've got, and whether or not they have to cover those kind of business safety visits across the whole region, because obviously that's a huge area to cover.
Yep, so I will start, and then I'm sure either Tom or James can come in with actual figures. But certainly, we have a number of districts with the team, the specialist officers. They enforce business fire safety under the regulatory reform order. So lots of qualifications and education that's required to be at the level to be able to work within those high and very high risk premises. They go out, they engage with those, picking up the RBIP, and they do that across the geographic area of North Yorkshire. So they do work in districts, they do work in teams. Some of them have got an operational background, so have been firefighters previously. Others, we have also got support staff who have been trained up to that level 4. So they would be from a non-operational or support services background who support that work for us with businesses as well. The actual numbers, I will have to defer to either Tom or James. Apologies.
Does anyone know?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So yeah, just a little bit more on what Damon's just covered there. So what we've got is we've got operational inspectors, non-operational inspectors, and advisors, and we're also shortly putting a bit together to look to introduce apprentice inspectors too. Some of our neighbouring services have done that, and they're based over 3 offices but cover the whole geography. So we've got protection officers based in Harrogate, York, and Scarborough.
And how many of those how many business fire safety officers do we have?
The operational or non-operational, we've got a blend. We tend to have around 3 working out of each one of the offices of the inspector, and then we also have advisors. We have got advisors working on different part-time contracts within there that make up a amount of full-time positions within them advisory roles. And what we're trying to introduce is the paper we'll be bringing forward for 3 apprentice inspectors, 1 for each one of the officers.
And just bearing in mind that we're doing the on-call thematic later in the meeting, it was just really to ask whether those officers are likely to be also on-call firefighters. Is that how we support some of our on-call colleagues, or is it completely separate?
No, so the operational inspectors, they keep their competencies. So if required, they can, and they haven't got pre-arranged, obviously high and very risk inspections booked in within their areas. If they are doing consultations, administration activities, they can help and support working from an on-call station.
Great. Okay, fantastic. We can move on to the next one.
Thank you. So this slide is with regards to our availability. So over the period of the 3rd quarter, we have a 68% availability. That is 98% within our whole time and 56% for our on-call duty system. That is a 3% decrease from the previous year. Just looking at some of the bullet points, we did have a Safe to Ride which concluded in January 2026. And they will be going out onto stations to support on-call across the service area. I went and visited them on their pass out of that course, and there was on-call staff that were moving to a number of stations. I think there were only one station that were getting 2 of those on-call firefighters. All of the others were going to separate on-call stations, so adding a bit more resilience into the on-call.
So just a question really, in terms of public assurances. So those decreases in availability each month at the end of last year, can you just provide some assurances around the overall levels of cover and your response to emergencies, even when availability is dropped?
Certainly. So as part of the CRMP and as prior to the CRMP, we consulted with the public on our response times. We will be getting onto that slide for the next quarter just after this one. But we do look at those response time standards and we try and maintain that geographic spread of cover across the service area. And for the looking at it on an annual basis, we are in line to meet our response times on both. I don't want to steal any of Chris's thunder, but we aren't resting on our laurels and we are working really hard to increase availability within our on-call. We're trying to do that in a very focused way to address where there's any areas. But I think Chris in his presentation, he will sort of be able to demonstrate that it's not solely about getting more numbers through into the system. It's about taking a really considered approach, and there's other areas that we need to address. 3% decrease, we do want to stem that and actually turn it around where we do start to see an increase in our availability. But when you look nationally and benchmarkers, it is far worse elsewhere in the country, but certainly we want to improve that and we want to stem the flow and not for it to decrease any further, and for us to improve it as we move forward. And hopefully Chris will show all the work that's going ahead to try and do that, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And is it possible, I don't want to assume anything, but is it also possible that given the demands in August and September on call firefighters because of the fire on the North Yorkshire moors, is it possible that that may have also contributed to particularly the on-call availability in the later months of the year? Or is that unrelated?
I haven't done that analysis, Deputy Mayor, but we can certainly look into it. What I would say is obviously our on-call staff's primary employers were really supportive, as you've suggested, through those months of July, August, September, where we had the significant wildfire and other incidents across the county. Maybe that was a knock on that certainly they needed to give that availability more to their primary employer, but we haven't done any analysis on that, so that would be an assumption at this point.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to keep an eye on for future meetings and whether or not
Definitely.
it bounces back in the next quarter. Okay, that's great. We can move on to the next one.
Thank you. This one's on our response time. So for the reporting period, which was that third quarter, overall response standard, which is set at on average 13 minutes, we achieved 11 minutes 47. For the dwelling fire response standard, which is 11 minutes, for this quarter we were over 11 minutes 11. Looking for further breakdown, which you requested at a previous online public meeting. As you can see there, 2 of the months, October and November, we were well within the dwelling response time, but it's December's response time at 13 minutes 28 that took us slightly over that dwelling fire standard of 11 minutes for this quarter. I have had a look at some of those incidents. So as you can see there were 14 dwelling fire incidents. Most of our incidents are normally within areas of higher urbanisation, so around York, Scarborough and Harrogate. Within the month of December, we had less frequent incidents in those areas. So out of those 14 dwelling fires, over half of them were in areas of rurality. The 3 highest response times within December actually added over 2 minutes to the average. I've looked into each of those 3 incidents. One required no fire service intervention. The second one was a chimney fire, which led to some firefighter action with roof tiles. And then the third incident was in, again, an on-call. It was at night in an on-call area, so will have been subject to the delayed turn-in times for our on-call.
So just, I was going to ask you about the incident, so thank you for providing that clarification, because I think it's important that people, this is the thing that members of the public are probably most concerned about in terms
Yes.
of their expectations from the service. Just any assurances you can give, you've already provided that assurance around the individual incidents, but just in terms of the difference, in terms of the damage that it might cause to someone's property. You know, the chimney fire, I have no idea what damage a chimney fire can cause. So therefore, if you can just explain potentially what that difference might be. And then in the other one, the one incident that you referenced where it was late in the night and there was a delay with the response time, again, what the impact would have been on the damage to that property. And just whether or not the delay was, sorry, this is a separate question, but whether or not the delays were caused by appliances being at other calls and whether or not that was a contributing factor as well. Those are the 2 things that I was concerned about with that number.
Certainly. So with the first 2 incidents that I said, obviously the first incident, there was no fire service action at the incident. That was something that had been left on a hob. It was in a place of rurality. We do know within North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue, being 3,200 square miles, that they are areas where they aren't adjacent to a fire station. That is why we pay so much attention to our prevention activities. As you've seen in the previous slide with the home fire safety visits, year on year, we're increasing those numbers because ultimately there's places within North Yorkshire that we won't be able to respond to within 10 minutes. So wherever possible, we will try and get into those areas, into rural areas with those most vulnerable people to prevent these fires happening. With regards to the chimney fire, that did lead to some slight smoke that was coming from the roof. That was extinguished by the crew. It was a very short one, and when I've looked through all of the incidents, all of those 14, actually each of the incidents were contained to room of origin, but that's not saying if people do live in a more rural location, obviously fires will grow more as time goes on. So if anyone does have any concerns, if people are vulnerable, obviously through our website, you know, we would like to hear from people so we can continue that great work that we're doing with regards to prevention.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly that actually the main thing is if people are worried that they should arrange for a prevention visit from the service, which I know that you do very comprehensively, and that's a particular priority in those rural areas. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe this is the final slide. This is on just incident response rates. As you can see from the bottom, it is very similar year on year from 24-25 to 25-26. That's quite surprising, certainly with regards to the fires. As you can see, there's less fires within 25-26 than there was in the previous one. But as I know you're aware, Deputy Mayor, we've had some rather large ones included in that 355, which would just be categorised as one fire incident. So there's nothing unusual with regards to the trends there. As you can see, they're quite similar from the previous year to this year.
One of the things that just strikes me about this slide, because we've had this conversation previously, haven't we, about large incidents only being counted as one fire. I just wonder whether we oughtn't to include the 999 data in this slide, just in terms of call volumes. Again, just to capture, presumably the larger incidents tend to provoke more calls, and it would just be an indicator of demand, probably slightly more accurately, or provide a slightly rounder picture of kind of what's going on. I'm not saying that we ought to do it, I'm just saying we maybe ought to think about that, just in order to provide a more accurate demonstration of the work that the service is doing. I had one other question, which was just about the false alarms, because I thought we were trying to reduce those numbers, and they've only gone up by 9, but I just wondered whether or not there was any explanation for the, given that I thought we were trying to make it go in the other direction, just any other kind of context you could add to that.
No, and certainly we're doing a lot of work, like you've said there, to reduce false alarms, certainly with regards to the false alarms due to apparatus. We will always get a number of false alarms within residential dwellings, which we will always turn out to, and certainly from our point of view, if people are concerned within their home, you know, certainly we want them to ring 999 and we will turn out to those incidents. But we are seeing through the data where we're working with businesses that do have a number of unwanted fire signals or false alarms. We're certainly working with them now to support them, educate them, give them some advice on the best systems that they can have to cover their areas. So hopefully with changes to policy and procedure that are due sort of within the next financial year, we'll start to see those lower even further, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all I had on that one. So I think that's the end of your performance slides, isn't it? So I think we're going to move on to the thematic presentation, which is on the On-Call Futures programme. And Chris, I think you're going to present these slides. Just before you start, just to kind of really keen to ensure that we're acknowledging the immensely important role that our on-call firefighters play particularly in the North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, and the number of hours that they commit, because it's not just about numbers, it's also just about how much time they have to commit to this role. So a huge thanks to them, and as we said at the beginning, just also an acknowledgement that the substantive employers of the people who serve as on-call firefighters and release them from their employment when they need to attend incidents, just a huge thanks to them. I know there's a huge range of employers across the region who where our on-call firefighters kind of come from kind of supermarkets to farms. So just a huge thanks to all of them for everything that they do in enabling effectively our fire and rescue service to function effectively, because we wouldn't be able to run the service without our on-call firefighters, and they play an enormously important role, which I know, Chris, you're going to talk to us about what we're doing to improve those numbers. So I'll hand over to you, and I'll if you could just pause at the end of each slide, that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for the chance to tell you about our On-Call Futures programme that we're doing. So just to start off, what is an on-call firefighter, just for the public, because there is a bit of a confusion between whole time and on-call. So everybody thinks that a fire station has somebody sat behind it all the time. and that's not necessarily the case. We do have a large amount of on-call firefighters in North Yorkshire because we have the largest fire service in England geographically to deal with. So we have a lot of rural areas where we need on-call firefighters to provide an immediate response within 4 minutes. So they provide a really critical role in lower demand areas that we have. So I'm based in Whitby, so the rural stations of Robin Hood's Bay, Lythe and Danby are my local stations, generally lower in risk for us. The trained firefighters who provide operational response via a pager, either from home or from work, and they need to live or work within 4 minutes of a fire station. As we talked about the incident response times earlier, to enable us to meet those, we do need people to live within that particular area, which does create quite a big problem because that really reduces the pool of people that we can typically recruit from, and that has provided a lot of challenges over the years due to the size of the geographical area around some of these stations. So 25 of the 38 fire stations that we have are solely crewed by on-call fire engines, and we've got a infographic there that we've produced for Skipton Fire Station, which breaks down really nicely exactly what a on-call firefighter does and what they're responsible for. These were produced so we could get out to the public a really clear message as to what an on-call firefighter was, and try and debunk some of the myths that do surround being an on-call firefighter. 6 further stations have whole-time and on-call crews as well. Ripon, Malton, Northallerton, etc. They have on-call crews and a whole-time crew running alongside them due to the greater demand in those areas. We do have 2 really important volunteer crews, Lofthouse and Goathland. During the summer, Goathland were absolutely invaluable to us, and they solely operate as volunteers. They just get paid for their incidents that they turn out to, but we still expect the same level of training and the same demands are placed upon them as on-call firefighters. Pretty much half of our operational workforce are on call, a little bit over. So we have 312 personnel that are on-call firefighters and roughly 300 at the moment whole-time firefighters. So it is a large proportion of our operational staffing. North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service are currently engaging with about 60 employers who release employees to the service, and that's really important that they continue to do that. And we've been engaging with them on a regular basis. During Langdale, we sent out letters to thank employers, which was really important because we did put an awful lot of demand on the patients and on the businesses that do support these firefighters, and they were very, very understanding during that incident, and it was only right that we did thank them personally. One of the real good success stories that we've had are the applications to on-call vacancies. We've seen a real downward trend before my role was established about 3 years ago, and it was continuing to have a downward turn with the applications for all these vacancies. So retention was really down as well. We were losing a lot of firefighters, and the applications were also lower. Applications have actually increased year on year, and we're really pleased with the work that's gone into that to try and restaff and really bolster a lot of these on-call stations. So.
Brilliant. And that is fantastic. And that's a really good visual demonstration of how reliable we are in North Yorkshire on our on-call firefighters, and a really good example of actually the efforts that have been made, Chris, to kind of get those numbers up and to also just ensure that people understand what the role involves. So thank you for that. It's brilliant.
You're welcome. Just at the end of that slide there, it just said that about a quarter of all applications do make it to being an on-call firefighter. So the attrition rate of the applications is really quite high. It is a difficult role to be able to get into. And that is why we do have quite high numbers, but still not always filling the safe to ride courses that we do have. So talking about availability over the last couple of years, we have had a declining trend still, even though we have managed to recruit more people, and I will talk about that later on in the slides to explain why that availability is tracking downwards still. There are reasons for that. We are in line with national declining trend. We are slightly above the averages that some other services are seeing, but traditionally and unfortunately across national trends, they are going down. So 9 months out of 11, there was a decline in availability, and we have seen a 7% drop in availability over the last 2 years.
And just to reassure the public, what do we do to ensure cover across the region when we haven't got the on-call availability?
Yeah, so as an alternative, it may be that we move a whole-time appliance to that particular station. We do have an operational staffing reserve that we draw upon, that we can move firefighters either in the evening or on the morning. We will move them to stations that are critically understaffed to be able to plug any gaps that we do have in our fire cover. We do have the ORH staffing tool as well to look at the dynamic cover to see where we actually do have holes within our fire cover and try and plug them using the OSR, the operational staffing reserve.
Great. Okay. And what is there a kind of target level that we ought to be thinking about in terms of that availability? It clearly isn't going to be 100%, but where would you ideally like to see it back up in the high 70s where things were a few years ago? What's the aim?
75% would be preferable over the next couple of years. Moving on, if things progress like we see, and we've got some really good green shoots of recovery, I would like to see that in the mid-80s. And there are examples of this happening. There are some exemplars out there of services. South Wales are quite good at the moment at maintaining their availability, and they've managed to move that up towards the 80% mark. So we're tracking where they were about 4 or 5 years ago. And I think with the measures that we're starting to put into place, I would like to start seeing an increase towards the 75% again.
Great, thank you. We can move on.
Okay, so the NFCC, the National Fire Chiefs Council, have conducted a really large on-call research study. They have sent out questionnaires to all on-call firefighters, and they've had the highest returns of any survey that they've ever conducted, and they've conducted a really thorough independent review with regards to the on-call. So because it is a national issue, is the on-call staffing and availability of fire appliances. It's not just particular to North Yorkshire. So just to run through the strengths, the on-call duty system remains cost-effective and vital for rural and low-risk areas, and it delivers real strong community values.
Great.
Sustainability challenges. We have structural, cultural, and also workforce pressures that threaten the long-term stability and sustainability of the on-call system. There was a big migration of people from cities out to the countryside, potentially going later on in their careers. The value of properties in rural locations has increased significantly due to second homes, due to Airbnbs, holiday lets, etc. So one of my local station of Robin Hood's Bay, we're already very much restricted where we can recruit because the North Sea is half of their recruitment pool, and we do have an awful lot of holiday lets, Airbnbs. It is pretty much quite ghostly during the winter when we don't have the visitors to Robin Hood's Bay, and that really limits the pool of people that we've traditionally been able to recruit from. So we have done a lot of work with such stations to really rally around the community and really try and support these stations. Robin Hood's Bay has been a really good success story. It's a real nice problem I have this week to meet with the estates to try and work out how we're going to fit 14 firefighters with all their PPE in the fire station there. At the end of the year, they will have 14 firefighters there. So we're really pleased with some of the success stories that we have had.
That is brilliant. It's a good problem to have, not knowing where to put everything because there's so many of them. So that is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, nice problem to have. So retention and work-life balance, retention problems do stem from the high workload, poor work-life balance that sometimes the on-call firefighters do suffer from, and limited flexibility in firefighting roles. So we've looked at all these particular issues, and we've tried to smooth out as many as we can do with the package that we do offer.
Yeah, and certainly that's really helpful. And I think, you know, workforce pressures is really important. Equally, and I'll just say it again because I know I've said it a couple of times previously, I think, in these meetings, but if there is ever anything that the Mayor and I can do working with employers to ensure that those incentives are clear enough, or that we've got the right kind of other support around people in terms of those other pressures that they might be facing, then we're very happy to look at that, because we absolutely value the role that our on-call firefighters are playing.
And your support with the primary employer engagement is appreciated and has been noted as well by various employers that have spoken to us. So thank you very much for that.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you.
So one of the very specific challenges that we do have in North Yorkshire, but it is also a national challenge as well, is supervisory managers. And when I say supervisory manager, that's somebody that can take a fire engine out and be in charge of that fire engine. They sit in the passenger seat at the front, and they decide how we're going to tackle an incident in the first stages. So research suggests from Dr. Stephen Sadler, who's done a lot of work researching the on-call and working out how we can improve availability at on-call stations, suggests that an ideal number is 4 supervisory managers per station. We do have a lack of supervisory managers, of crew managers and watch managers. So North Yorkshire, we need and we would like 102 supervisory managers within our on-call cadre. We do have 22 vacancies for that. So one problem that we also do have is that a lot of our supervisory managers that we do have are already dual contract. And when I say dual contract, that is they are whole time at one station and then on call at another one. So they may work at Pickering Station as an on-call firefighter, as a watch manager, but then they're on call, they're at Scarborough Station during the day as well. So we only have actually half a person being able to be in charge. And we do rely quite heavily on our dual contracts to be able to provide that supervisory manager function. 4 stations at the moment only have 2 supervisory managers. 7 stations are down to 1 supervisory manager, which is really quite burdensome. And there is an awful lot of pressure on them 7 stations. And then 2 stations currently have no supervisory managers in place. In total, 13 on-call stations are currently understaffed with supervisory managers. One of the issues that we do have is that we have 120 firefighters, and there's a split there, 50 firefighters in what we call the acquisition stage and 70 in firefighter development stage. So that's 120 of our staff are not able to go for these supervisory manager positions. So we've been very successful in recruiting quite a large amount of people, but it does take quite a long time for people to get through the acquisition stages where they go and learn further skills like breathing apparatus, how to attend road traffic collisions, working at heights, and then they have to work through a development folder to be able to then be proven competent. Once they're proven competent, then they can apply for the supervisory manager positions. To get competent as an on-call firefighter, it can take up to 4 years. It is quite a significant period of time. So, which is, when I hark back to what I previously said about the 75% availability, I think once we start to see the glut of acquisition and development firefighters come through the system, and we return them through the ways that we've been able to prove their work in, then I would hope to see that we get more people in those supervisory manager positions. So that's one of the reasons why I'm quite hopeful regards the future of the on-call service.
And can I just ask, before you move on to the next slide, just the stations that have either kind of slightly insufficient or no supervisory managers currently, how do they kind of function? How do they get that supervision?
So they've got support plans put in place with them, so their station manager have created dedicated support plans, and we put supervisory managers in place for drill nights. So somebody's there overseeing them. It'll be either the station manager themselves, the district watch managers that we have, or the training crew managers from training centre. So we do have ad hoc arrangements in place to be able to support those on-call stations. During the day, we spoke about the operational staffing reserve. It may be that we take a crew manager from that operational staffing reserve and put them on that particular station to crew them up. So we do have enough firefighters. It's just that we don't have the supervisory managers in place to be able to make the fire appliance available.
Great. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So, what have we done about trying to attract more on-call supervisory managers? We've created a really effective on-call support team. So the district watch managers that I just spoke about there, we have 4 of them, 1 in each district at the moment, and they are solely there to support the on-call and make sure that everything's working really well and effectively with those particular stations. They've been a really good link between myself as the on-call futures project manager and the stations. They're my eyes and ears all over the county to be able to relay what's happening back to me, and we're then able to tailor the support for the supervisory managers. So we've developed district watch managers to become incident command trainers. So before a supervisory manager goes for their reassessment, then we can have a structured training session with that particular person, get their skills up, make them nice and comfortable before they actually have to go and conduct a revalidation. Sometimes the supervisory manager fails a revalidation, and then they're taken off the run to be able to take a fire engine out. And that does happen occasionally. By putting this team in and training and supporting them before they go on that revalidation, we're trying to and starting to reduce the amount of people who fail that particular revalidation. We're supporting candidates through the incident command workbooks. So there is a substantial workbook to go on before they attend the course. It's all accredited. It is a really quite onerous qualification to achieve. So we're putting as much support with that candidate as possible through the district watch manager team. We've created presentations to assist with the incident command level 1 workbooks. We've also managed to acquire professional discussions for anybody with a reasonable adjustment. So we know in the fire service that we do have a higher than typical neurodiversity. It may be dyslexia or something like that, where we need reasonable adjustments. If that person is found to have a reasonable adjustment, then we can go through a professional discussion to be able to achieve their qualification rather than going through a set workbook. And that's been very effective to actually recruit more supervisory managers.
Sorry, I haven't fully understood what that might mean. Is that like making accommodation for someone with dyslexia or someone with a learning disability?
So some of our candidates that are going for supervisory managers, it may be they've been out of school for 30 years. And it is quite a detailed workbook that they have to go through. It requires a lot of writing. If somebody has reasonable adjustments, then we can say, right, we'll leave the workbook and we can actually work with Catherine Lamb, our provider, to go through a professional discussion with them so they can detail the answers verbally rather than going through a written workbook.
Yeah, okay, that's great, thank you.
Okay, the district watch managers are out there all the time. They're attending incidents and they're also on the stations regularly, and they're identifying and encouraging eligible candidates to have a go at being a supervisory manager. We're running step into command sessions at the incident command suite. We're also doing that in a district, so they can come have a go at being on an incident commander. We'll have on a computer system software, and they can see what it's like and feels like to be an incident commander and see if that's something that they're interested in before taking the plunge into the world of incident command.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, we've been implementing station support plans, which I spoke of, the higher need stations that don't have supervisory managers there. We have had a look at implementing an acting crew manager role. That wouldn't be an accredited qualification, and we deemed that there was too much risk associated with having somebody who wasn't accredited by the Skills for Justice to be able to be in charge of a fire engine. So we've chosen not to go down that route. I have been sat on the National Fire Chief Council's on-call practitioners group, looking at the ICL1 problem, the incident command problem. It is a really thorny subject because we do need people who are really capable, really confident, accredited and qualified to be able to take care of a fire engine and the incidents that they attend. It is a difficult situation to put somebody into. And to be able to do that on the cheap or through a short period of time is really, really difficult to do. And we've looked at it long and hard as a national group, and we haven't been able to come up with any solutions as a national group, which is why we're looking at it from a local level and why we've done what we have done, to be able to try and implement as many changes as possible locally to try and solve this supervisory manager issue. What we could do in the future is make more supervisory manager roles available on stations where there is a demand, creating more resilience. So in the future, I would like to see where we already have a fully staffed supervisory manager team, if there is somebody interested in going for that particular role, making them up to a crew manager and having that resilience on the station to be able to accommodate for any sickness. They may be able to be detached, especially if they're over in the Craven area, because we do have some Craven crewing project over there where we share the crewing around the stations. So to be able to have more supervisory managers on station, just to create a little bit more resilience, would be preferable going forward.
Great, thanks. I suppose my only question there, just on the manager roles, is just whether or not any areas have looked at having managers who aren't also firefighters, so whether, you know, they don't necessarily meet the same fitness requirement, but do have the experience and those kind of skills that you need to be the kind of leader in that space. Is that something that other places have looked at?
It has been looked at, but as far as I'm aware, the fitness standards are still required to be in charge of a fire appliance.
Right.
And there hasn't been a reduction in that, because even if they're not wearing breathing apparatus, it can still be a really demanding role. I've done it myself as a watch manager, and just thinking back to how watch managers have had to work so hard over Langdale and at various building fires, it can be a really intensive on your fitness to be an operational firefighter. So a reduction in the standards of fitness isn't something that we've gone for at this moment in time.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So in order to turn a fire engine out to an incident, we do need somebody to drive that vehicle. And research suggests that in order to perform as a really high performing on-call station, we need 4 emergency response drivers. And I'm pleased to report we have an improving picture with emergency drivers in the service. So currently we only have 1 station with 1 driver and 2 stations with just 2 drivers, which is quite onerous on them. 4 stations with 3 drivers, and we are only 11 drivers short overall. We're performing well above the average nationally with regards to response drivers, which is nice to report. Many stations have 5+ drivers, and that's bucking the national trend. So we are performing really well there. When I talk to other counties regards their on-call, not having enough supervisory managers and not having enough drivers is the main factor that we don't have on-call fire appliances available. We do struggle with the supervisory side, but currently we're doing quite well with regards to drivers.
And just in terms of, even though it's a good picture, just given that we're 11 short, what are we doing about that gap?
So it is quite an intensive, drawn out process to be able to get people through the driving. So since the Fire Standards Board came in, then there is a requirement to undertake 2 weeks of blue light driving. There is 1 day where they have to drive through the night, and also to be able to do that, they need to take their LGV test, which is a week-long course as well, and their theory test in the lead up to that. So we're looking at about 3.5 weeks to be able to get somebody into an emergency response driver standard. Sometimes it's not having enough experienced firefighters on station at the moment that we can put them in the position where we have them driving a fire appliance. So if somebody has just started at the station, then it's not a position that we want to put them in straight away driving a fire appliance, because we need them to sit in the back and be able to learn all the functions of a firefighter, which you don't often get if they're sat in the front seat and driving. We have previously had a bit of a shortfall within our driver training. I believe we're now up to a full cadre of driver trainers, and we're starting to get through the backlog of driver training courses.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Always good to be bucking the trend.
It is. It's quite nice, isn't it? Yes. So what else we've done about emergency response drivers? We've identified primary employers with favourable policies towards the on-call firefighters. So some businesses have really favourable terms and policies and investors in people, and they allow on-call firefighters to have 2 weeks unpaid leave, paid leave, sorry, to be able to attend courses for North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. Where we've managed to identify these policies and make employers aware, because sometimes employers aren't always aware that these policies are available to them, then we let them know that that's in place and they can approach their employers and ask for the time off to be able to do that. So that has released a few firefighters to be able to attend their driving course. We've also had a look at recruiting large goods vehicle trained drivers only, which was a nice idea, but they're actually driving all around the country and not being anywhere near an on-call fire station, unfortunately. We do also have the issue that they've been driving all day. Do they then want to be driving an on-call fire engine and then back to driving? We do have issues with tachograph and working time as well with regards to that. We have looked at employing firefighters on the driving only contract. As you spoke about before, with the fitness standards, looking at the fitness standards for a drive, they are actually higher than somebody who wears breathing apparatus. Because if you pull up to a fire outside a property and we have to ship a hydrant to get the water out of the ground, run multiple lengths of hose out, backwards and forwards to a fire engine, it is actually more demanding on a firefighter than it is wearing breathing apparatus. So we are able to lower the fitness standard and have a driver only contract.
Okay.
We could potentially reduce the training requirement back to 40 hours due to current legislation. So the Fire Standards Board has looked at legislation that is going to be implemented in the future, but that has been a long time waiting in the House of Commons. That hasn't been passed and we're not quite sure when it would be passed. So we are currently working towards legislation that we are expecting to come in. It is something that we could revert back to our old standard of 20 hours driver training and not be in line with the legislation that is upcoming. But that would be quite a risky move to do, and it's not a decision that's sat with myself. We could ensure driving courses is only accessed once competency is gained or acquisition courses are complete. So a little bit of a carrot. A lot of firefighters enjoy driving fire appliances, and once we start to get people through the development courses, through the acquisition courses, then we can offer driving, and we're hoping that will expedite people through our development process to be able to then be drivers in the future.
Great. I actually don't have any questions on that slide.
Lovely, thank you. So recruitment, we do have spoke about recruitment and difficulties going forward. Research suggests 10 firefighters per station. So looking back at 2024, we had a headcount of 292. We've got the full-time equivalent, or FTE, of 238. So we have increased our headcount by 8, which is again bucking the national trend. Most fire services are actually reducing the headcount year on year. We have increased our headcount. Unfortunately, the full-time equivalent, or the amount of cover that they are declaring to give us on-call firefighters, has reduced. The main reason for that is the new tiers that were brought in for payment. So we have 5 different contracts or bandings or availability levels that we offer to on-call firefighters. And firefighters, some have chosen to give less availability. We're still keeping their essential skills. We still have them as a firefighter, but they're not given as much time as they used to do. And going forward, I think we're more likely to see greater numbers at an on-call station with everybody giving less cover than we previously had. Traditionally, we'd have 12 people on a station giving a lot of cover. 14, 16 would not be unusual now going forward. And I think that's a model that we will be working towards going forward.
Okay.
We do have 19 stations with less than 9 firefighters, which starts to, once you start to drop to 8 and 9 firefighters, it does start to become more difficult to keep that fire appliance on the run. But as I did say previously, recruitment is increasing year on year.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything on that one either. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. So what have we done about it? And this is one of the big strands of my my role, was to try and increase recruitment, because if we don't have on-call firefighters on station, then we're really hamstrung. So we've got a nationally recognised now managing expectations interview. Previously, we slightly sugarcoated it, I think would be the best way to say it, about what an on-call firefighter was. We're now very, very clear as to what an on-call firefighter does, and our expectations of them, and what we expect them to deliver and give to the service. And by putting that in place really, really on, we've managed to let candidates know exactly what they're going to experience and decide to drop out at a very early stage if they think it's not for them. It has stopped dropouts at Safe to Ride courses that they first attend, and we haven't had a dropout in the last 2 years due to the managing expectations interview. And yeah, that's a nationally recognised way of recruitment now, and seen as an exemplar. We've had targeted letter drops, so we've done a lot of letter dropping over a lot of the stations, Settle, Robin Hood's Bay, Massam, to name a few, where we've used population data and financial data to be able to target letter drops for people that are more likely to apply for the on-call. We've put clear timelines in for the recruitment process. We have weekly meetings with our colleagues in talent and development to make sure that no candidates get stuck in the system, and we know where every candidate is at any one point in time, because previously we had struggled to get people through the system, and people were getting stuck for various reasons. That has uncleared, and we have a really successful pipeline of recruitment now. We do use paid for social media adverts, which have been effective. The click-through rate has been 0.98%, which